Shri Ganesha Sharada Gurubhyo Namaha Ramaya Ramabhadraya Ramachandraya Vedhase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha. Welcome to all for this session on Ramayana to chapter 4 under Bala Kanda. In the previous chapters, we have seen how Narada told the entire story of Rama in a condensed form, and then later Valmiki decided to elaborate the story at the command of Brahma in a specified meter. And then in the last chapter, he had, with blessings of Brahma, he had a long vision of the entire story of Rama, visualizing every scene in that. And then, accordingly, he wrote the entire epic in the selected meter, which could easily be sung by anyone with a particular rhythm. While Sri Rama was still king of Ayodhya, the great sage Valmiki composed this beautiful classic. As it was told here, while sage Valmiki is composing this classical epic at that time, Sri Rama himself was living as king of Ayodhya, so both of them are contemporaries. The holy Rishi composed 24,000 verses and divided them into 500 chapters and 6 books. This is just an approximate rounded figure. People have added, probably it was, there is one more book also known as Uttarakanda associated with this, and it is not exactly 500 chapters, the 500 shlokas. There are little more than that. This is only the rounded figure for that. In addition, he composed the epilogue. The work being completed, he reflected thus: to whom shall I teach this classic? While the sage was reflecting on the matter, the two princes Kusha and Lava, the offsprings of Rama and Sita, approached him and touched his feet in reverence. As according to the story that was told later, Sita, at the time of before the birth of Lava and Kusha, she came to the hermitage of sage Valmiki and she stayed there, and there itself she gave birth to Kusha and Lava, the twins and offspring of Rama. Great sage studied these two virtuous princes of mellifluous speech who dwelt with him in his hermitage at that time, knowing them to be wise and full of faith in the teachings of the Vedas. Great sage who had expounded the meaning of the scriptures in his verses taught the classic to them. The great Valmiki taught them the classic, describing the deeds of Rama and Sita and all that relates to the incidents leading to the slaying of Ravana, named the slaying of the grandson of Aulastya. This historical classic is pleasant to sing and adopted to three measures of time. It is contained within the 7 notes and can be sung to the veena. It expresses the various moods of love, courage, disgust, anger, terror, compassion, wonder, laughter, and serenity. The two princes were skilled musicians, proficient in rhythm and melody, and had sweet voices. They were as comely to look at as Gandharvas, endowed with godlike beauty. The two sweet singers, the reflected images of Sri Rama himself, constantly repeated the holy classic and committed it to memory. The two adorable and charming princes skillfully recited the holy classic, the Ramayana, which extols virtue before the sages. The learned Brahmins and ascetics as they had been instructed to do. On a particular occasion, the two princes, great soul, fortunate, and equipped with all good qualities, chanted the great epic in Sri Rama's assembly. The listening sages were visibly moved and shed tears in delight. Being overcome with wonder, they cried, "Excellent, excellent!" and praising the two singers. The virtue loving sages experienced great joy. Showering praises on the brothers, they cried, "How melodiously you sing! How exquisite is the divine poem, the story of Rama!" Being pleased with the sweet singers, one sage presented them with yostas, another with delicious fruits, third with robes of bark, and another with antelope skins. Some gave sacrificial thread, some vessels of collecting alms, others gave loin clothes, kusha grass, garments of yellow cloth, scarves, and thread for binding the hair, sacrificial vessels, rosaries, and axes. Others bestowed their blessings upon them, saying, "May you live long," and all acclaimed the author of the marvelous poem. They said, "This meter will be the foundation of the verse of future poets. It is composed according to specific rules. The two princes have sung this wonderful poem with great art. It will promote wisdom in those who listen to it and grant them longevity and health. It is truly able to turn the heart." While the sages were thus praising the two princes, Sri Ramachandra, passing that way, took them to his royal palace, occupying his golden throne. Sri Rama, the destroyer of his foes, offered hospitality and reverence to the two worthy princes. In the assembly, surrounded by his ministers and brothers, Sri Rama looked approvingly on those handsome and learned youths and addressed the Princess Lakshmana, Shatrughna, and Bharata, saying, "Hear the historical poem which these two celestial and brilliant minstrels sing. This poem, which portrays incidents of wonderful meaning." Then Sri Rama commanded the two musicians to sing, and the princes tuned their veenas and chanted the poem they had learned sweetly and clearly. The whole assembly listened to the music, which was wholly gratifying to the mind and heart. Sri Rama said, "I admire the music and the verse sung by these two minstrels who appear to be endowed with royal attributes." Thus ended it's continued. In this way, praised and encouraged by Sri Ramachandra, the two brothers, demonstrating their skill in music, sang on, listening to them in the royal assembly. Sri Ramachandra was charmed. Thus ended chapter 4 of the under the Balakanda of Sri Ramayana. There is a peculiar thing in the first four chapters which often misguide the people who look at Ramayana from historical and from studies point of view. Because in these first four chapters, we see Valmiki himself being part of the story, and he is mentioning that the Valmiki has wrote all these things, but the people who practice spirituality and meditation and who are conversant with the Indian tradition Can observe one thing here, because most of the people who study Ramayana have described saying that the first few chapters were not written by Valmiki. Otherwise, why Valmiki is presenting himself in that story? But observe one thing, throughout it is a practice to say about oneself in the third person, as though it is done by some person, Valmiki. And nowhere in all the four chapters Valmiki says it is Valmiki, I myself wrote this story. These words I and myself were never used by the people while doing any great act. They used to assume that this is all done by some unknown force whom people may call as God. So it is done by some unknown force, and I'm used only as a media. Like, for example, even these stories, though it is read by a human whose name may be Prakasha, myself, but of course, I'll simply say this whole story is read for you by a person, Prakasha. That's it. Who that person doesn't matter, because you can observe in the last chapter Rama also tell all the people to listen to Ramayana, but never for a single time he says listen to my story, because these people are singing my story. He never says, he simply says they are singing Ramayana of a historical significance. It is beautiful. That is what we say when people practice putting, ascribing everything to the God's deed, like it is told in many other religions too, inshallah, as God wills, it is all done by God. Or in Christianity, it is told as thy will be done. That means whatever is the God's will, that will be done. And in Indian scriptures, we say Jai Shri Rama. It says that the victory to Sri Rama. It is not about his victory over Ravana. It is about in our life, in the life of every individual, whatever that happen, let it happen as what Rama decides. Considering Rama as the God, we say as what Rama wills, let that happen. So well, let there be victory to the Rama's will, and that is what leads us to Jai Shri Rama. In the same way, here Valmiki, like how Rama was telling, Valmiki may be explaining about the creation of Ramayana in the beginning in a third person, as though it is done by an instrument, a media known as Valmiki, whereas the real writer, real author of the entire epic is that unknown force. Namaste Sharada Devi Kashmira Puravasini Twamaham Prarthaye Nityam Vidya Danancha Dehime. Goodbye.